Welcome back, everybody, to Two Guys and a Stack of Comics. I'm Reed. Along with me is Mike. Mike, how you doing, sir?
I'm doing great. I'm ready for this video.
A topic that, yeah, me and you as DC fans, we've talked about this a lot, given that it's my favorite character. But it's the topic we want to talk about is the kind of over presence or oversaturation or just the prevalence of Batman
I
in
can't
DC
believe we're
Comics.
asking that question because I imagine for certainly for you, I don't know if
Mhm.
there could ever be too much Batman.
No, my wife always jokes when we were first dating. I always used to be like, that movie could have used more Batman. No matter what the movie was, I would just, that movie would have been better with Batman. And even as a hardcore fan, even as someone who is a humongous Batman fan, and I'm probably part of the problem. I'm the guy who buys the action figures and the comics and all that stuff. One of the most common complaints that I see with anybody when you talk about DC Comics, and this is whether I talk to people in comic book stores or just go online, the number one complaint you see from people is, man, there's just too many Batman titles. And because there's too many Batman titles, it's sinking DC. Um, so I will go to you first on this because you're the it's not that you're not a Batman fan, but he's not your favorite. Do you think the oversaturation or just abundance of Batman stuff that's out there, do you think it actually hurts DC as a company overall?
Well, as a kid, I loved Batman. And you and I were just talking about probably, although I can't remember, probably the first comic book I ever bought was a Batman comic because I loved the TV show when I was a little kid. Adam West and Burt Ward and Caesar Romero. I love that
Yeah.
show. I didn't know what camp was when I was a kid.
Yeah.
I love seeing Batman.
Hmm.
And so probably the first comic I ever bought was a Batman comic. And I remember at some point discovering that, oh, Batman's also in Detective Comics. Well,
Yeah.
let me get a Detective comic. And then maybe a month later, like, oh, what is this Brave and Bold thing going on here? I must get one of those comics. So, um, Batman was, a comic that I loved, and I didn't mind, picking up a Detective Comics story here or there, or a Brave and Bold story here or there.
Hmm.
But I have purposely avoided Batman comics for a long time. There was a time in 2018 when he was going to get married to Catwoman. Remember that?
Yep. Tom King. Yeah. That whole run.
And I loved Joelle Jones. I loved the fact that she
Get some great
wrote
art. Yeah.
and she drew. And I bought that whole Catwoman series and the adjacent Batman ones. But what threw me off of Batman was that every time I go in the comic shop, oh, if you're reading Batman, you also need to, add these other five titles to your sub list. And
Yeah.
he has a crossover with Flash, Mike, and we know how much you like Flash. And I would get the crossovers, and it ballooned out of, and I was like, I am not buying another Batman comic. I don't care what it is. It's just too much. It's just too much. And the multiverses and then the crossovers and it just got to be too much. And so for a diehard fan who loves DC, yeah, Batman got to be too much. And to this day, I tread very lightly, although I have, gotten some of your recommendations
Yeah.
recently. There was the Gotham City PD, I think. I found that kind of interesting, and I tried the new one. I tried an issue where
Batman and Robin. Yeah.
yeah, Batman and Robin, where they moved to the city together to fight crime,
Yeah.
left the mansion, and I didn't like it. So I'm
Yeah.
back on I'm back on no Batman at all right now.
I think the problem with I think there's two elements to it. I do think, yeah, there's too many Batman comics. I mean, I was looking at my pull list this month and I still buy all the Batmans and I've had to drop like six or seven other titles to keep my Batmans and keep my
Just to keep
budget
up
where I
with
want it to
Batman.
be. There's Batman, there's Detective Comics, there's Batman and Robin, there's Batman and Superman World's Finest.
Oh, World's
So
Finest
yeah,
is
there's
another one.
four titles there. There is also a Batman Gargoyle of Gotham like special series, Batman City of Madness. There was a Batman Beyond series. I'm probably forgetting another couple. And so
That's crazy,
yeah,
dude.
that's the thing is I think there's too many, and where I do think it's a huge problem for the comics. I understand why there's so many Batman titles. That's what sells. DC's looking for anything that sells, and they know if you throw, Batman and the Huntress on a title, it's going to sell 50,000 copies. If you just make it the Huntress, it's going to sell 8,000 copies and probably get canceled in 4 issues.
They got to keep those printing presses going.
And
They
so I
got
think what I do think has happened, though, as a Batman fan, what I can say that bugs me, with there being such an abundance of titles, what annoys the heck out of me is there's so many of these like special ones like Batman, Gargoyle of Gotham, and City of
to.
Madness that have beautiful art, incredible storytelling. And then I'll go to the main Batman title or the main Detective Comics. It's more Detective Comics now. And it's mediocre art and mediocre storytelling. I'm like, you got 9 Batman books this month. How is like the best 4 people, like your best 2 writers,
Your
your best
flagship
artists,
title.
should
Yeah.
be on Detective Comics and Batman? And I think the other part of it is because, and oh man, yeah, there's another Batman Offworld that's going on with Jason Aaron and all that. Yeah. Um, it's driving me crazy. I knew I was forgetting one. Um, the big problem too is you have creative teams and good artists. Like Batman Offworld is this new title. It's 2 issues in. It's about a young Batman going into space for the first time. It's actually a very good story. But the problem is Jason Aaron came over from Marvel, and I'm not the biggest Jason Aaron fan, but he is a name that if you put on books, people buy. He did the whole Jane Foster Thor run, and I think he's got some bad runs. I'm not a huge fan of his, but his is a name that of writers compared to the talent that DC has, you would think that you'd want to put him on a big project. Instead of him going on Green Arrow or Green Lantern or Aquaman or something like that, where you could give an artist or a writer who could really bump up a book a bit, they put him on Batman. Right. Doug Monkey's the artist on that. Doug has done a lot of Batman runs in the past. I think he's done some really good Green Lantern stuff. He's an artist that is above average. He's good. He's on a 4th tier Batman book. Instead of, it's weird as I was looking at him, like at the same time the Aquaman movie's launching, they're taking a pretty good artist and a pretty good writer and they're putting him on like the 6th Batman title. It's like, man, these could have been 2 guys who could have launched a new Aquaman book alongside the movie, and you might have had a chance to establish a series and kind of get it going. And while I'm kind of happy as someone who actually likes Aquaman that Jason Aaron's not writing Aquaman, I do think
Oh,
there's a lot of missed opportunities with that. You see some of these artists and these writers who are on these offshoot Batman titles, and it's like, man, why is this guy not writing a Justice League book or a Barry Allen led Flash book? Or, and I think that's the hard part for a lot of DC Comics fans is like, wait a second, you're telling me Arthur Curry and Barry Allen can't have a solo series, but Bruce Wayne has 9? And like, I kind of get that. Like, I get where people would have some things with it. So I do think from the comic standpoint, it's hurting comics. And that I think DC, you can't just keep riding the Batman train of 10 books a month or Batman, and that's your sellers. And that, while I get that that's what's going right now, that's not sustainable forever. At some point, you're going to need to have more superheroes that you can sell other than Batman.
and the quality suffers.
Hmm.
And like you alluded to, the flagship title of all of DC Comics is Detective Comics. That's where
Yeah.
DC comes from. And you're telling me right now they're putting their not so great talent on their
Yeah, I mean
flagship
it's
book?
DC Detective Comics, in all honesty, hasn't been a great Batman book. I would say of the 8 or 9 that are coming out, it's
I
the
just
one.
can't even. I remember
It's
reading them as a kid. I used to gravitate more towards detective because it was a little more grittier and
Yeah, the
something
issue I
about
think
it.
that's happened with Batman in the comics and where I think it is hurting is one, I've always thought Detective Comics should be the most important comic being published by DC. I don't really understand why it wouldn't be. But the big thing is, like right now, of the 8 or 9 Batman books I pick up, that's the one I least look forward to because you can just tell the quality's not as great on that book. And then I think the other thing is, what used to be great, and I thought the New 52, for all their sins and all the mistakes that they made, what I thought the New 52 did well is the main Batman title was really a superhero action adventure book. And Detective Comics was a little bit more hard-boiled mysteries, smaller stuff. Batman stopping killers, investigating murders. There wasn't a lot of like explosive, the Joker and the Riddler, and people are taking over Gotham. It was smaller, quieter stories. And that really worked because it was like, okay, I've got two titles, but one is this huge, colorful superhero action book, and the other's a little more quiet, hard-boiled kind of noir detective angle. They don't really do that anymore. All of them are just kind of whatever story we're telling with Batman. And again, when you're dispersing the talent so much amongst Batman, it hurts the rest. It's kind of, me and you talk sports a lot, but like there was a couple years ago where the NBA was really boring because all of the top players were on three or four teams. And that's great for the top three or four teams. They're really fun to watch. But there's 26 other teams. And the other 26 teams, you're like, well, they're boring as heck. And unless that's your favorite team, no one cares. And I think that's kind of where DC's gotten is like they're letting so many characters get neglected to put people on sixth and seventh and eighth tier Batman books. And I get it. Those Batman books sell better. But at a certain point, you're going to burn out the Batman audience and you've done nothing to set up Aquaman or John Stewart Green Lantern or so many great characters, Hawkman, all these characters. And it's like, I'm not saying you got to give Hawkman a 50 issue series, but every couple years toss out 6 or 7 issues of Hawkman and just keep fans happy. And then you may hit and it may do well. But DC has this thing where it's just like 20 Batman books, 15 books that are kind of loosely related to Batman with like Nightwing and Robin and all kinds of stuff, a few Superman titles, and then it's getting really thin with the rest of their books. And it's like, it's just not sustainable to let all those other titles die.
For someone like me who lived through the death of the Flash,
Mm-hmm.
where his book was canceled. They brought it back 2 years later, but Barry Allen was dead, so it was Wally
Mm-hmm.
West. And for someone who has always lived on the fringes through the 90s and 21st century scares that comics are going to end,
Yeah.
titles are going to get canceled for
Mm-hmm.
the last 30 plus years, for someone who's a fan of a third tier character like Flash, always thinking like one day that's going to be it. There's going to be no more Flash. And to look at, 8, 9 Batman titles and there's no room for Flash.
No, and
But
I think
that's kind of like a thing. Like if you're a Green Lantern fan or you're an Aquaman fan, it's already happened to you. You're dead. Like
yeah.
maybe you'll get a mini series once in a while, but that's gone.
Well, no, and like what's crazy is like Green Lantern for a while with Jeff Johns had 3 or 4 Green Lantern books, and then they just kind of let the momentum on it die. And it's like, why? And then it's back now. There's an ongoing Green Lantern, but like there was a couple years there was no Hal Jordan book out. And it's like, what are you doing? Like DC, you don't have the stable of heroes that like Marvel does, where there's 20 different characters who can support a book. DC, the one complaint that I would understand from Marvel fans is Marvel's depth. They've got a lot more characters they can sell on their own. DC, you're looking at maybe 10, 15 characters at most who can sustain their own book.
Yeah,
Like, you can't let Aquaman die. You can't
no,
let Green Lantern die. Like, you don't have built-in replacements for them. And I
no,
think that's the hard part of this is because there's so much focus on Batman in every aspect. And as much as I don't like saying this as a Batman fan, you can clearly tell like when they launch books sometimes it's like, man, you couldn't have pulled like 3 people off of like your fourth tier Batman book to give them a shot to launch Aquaman or Hawkman or something. I think the other thing DC's doing an awful job of, and I think this it could be because so many people are working on Batman. Me and you are hardcore DC Comics characters. There's characters I really love who are on the fringes of DC Comics. And fun enough, my toddler, he loves watching this Batman Brave and the Bold cartoon with me. And he
love
loves
that
this
cartoon.
he loves this episode where Red Tornado is teaming up with Batman. And I think they're fighting
Yeah,
like evil Santa Claus robots or something.
yeah, yeah.
He
I
loves
remember
that
that
episode.
one.
And I've always liked Red Tornado, and I was thinking, hey, when is the last time I saw Red Tornado in a comic book? I don't
Very
remember.
rarely.
Like I don't even remember a guest panel that he was on. And it's like I think that's the other part is DC benches some of these characters for so long that it's like it's very hard to revive those. Especially like you're not gonna make them popular by burying them for 5 years. Like it's not gonna work that way. Um, and so I think Yeah, they probably, as much as I will never say that I think the world needs less Batman, I do think for the comics marketplace it might be better if men like take two or three of these Batman titles, take the good creative folks on those and put them on.
I
A
think, you got to go back to the basics of comics, which is um, it's really a publishing industry.
Mhm.
And I probably can understand the bean counters and the suits saying, if we don't sell X amount of books, we're out of business, boys.
Yeah.
And we got to keep those printing presses humming. And, rather than take a chance on rebooting Aquaman, we can put out a ninth title, call it Batman, whatever.
Yeah.
And,
You look like a good title at Batman, whatever. And
Brave and the Bald,
yeah.
Brave without a cape. Batman. Oh, that's Nightwing.
Yeah.
Um, and that'll still sell more than rolling the dice on this one and potentially us going out of business. Maybe that's where they're at. I don't know, but I will ask you, as a Batman fan, what are of the nine Batmans that are out? What are your favorite two?
Oh,
They're
the
right
main
now.
Batman, the main Batman series is still really good. I think
Who's writing that one?
Chip
Who's writing that?
Zdarsky is right now. He just got off of Daredevil.
Zdarsky's
He,
good, good.
and then I do think it's gonna only, I think it's only three issues, but that Batman Gargoyle of Gotham series is fantastic. But it's because you can just tell the artist just put everything he had into every single panel.
And it's going to be gone next,
Yeah, and it's gone. I'll
six
be honest,
issues.
and I do think the crazy thing for me looking at it is um Batman as a character. What's so funny is like when there used to be three or four titles, it was kind of cool because every week I would go through my stack and hey, there's a Batman this week. Awesome. Now, like every single week, there's two Batmans. It's like, even as a huge fan, well, I think Batman's great and I love so many of these adventures. It's like, it does take away, even from someone who's a super fan, a little bit of like oh, cool, here's the one Batman this week. When it's like, oh, which of the four Batmans do I read that came out this week? And I think, I just don't know if it's sustainable. I think that's a huge
Well,
problem.
I will tell you, as a Flash fan, in recent years, they have tried to get me to spin off in one direction or other and have Flash adjacent stories and characters. Um, and I've, I've said no. I went there with, I don't even know, there was the Speed Force, the
Speed
Dark
Force, yeah,
Force.
Wallace West, and yeah.
There was the, I don't know, when I got halfway into it, I'm like, I don't know if I really like this story. So now you got your diehard Flash fan, and I know there's I think there's two or three others out there, but I got the blinders on. I'm reading
Well,
the
I think
Jason.
that's where you end up losing folks too, is it's like, in all honesty, what I used to do when I go to the comic book stores, I used to buy Batman, Detective Comics, and then the rest of my comic money for DC, I would pick up Nightwing, I would pick up Red Hood, I would pick up, Teen Titans or something like that. Because I liked the Batman adjacent characters. I don't have money for that anymore. Like, I'm buying all the Bruce Wayne ones. I just buy anything that's got Bruce Wayne. I'm not gonna pick up Dick Grayson's comic or the other ones because it's like, well, there's like three Bruce Wayne ones out, and I'm always gonna read Bruce Wayne instead of Dick Grayson, as much as I think Dick Grayson's a great character. And I think
Yeah,
that's another thing that they're doing too, is I think even the super Batman fans, most of the time, if you're a guy going to the comic book shop, it's very rare you're gonna walk in and you only pick up your character's book. But to have where, like you go and there's like five Bruce Waynes, it's like, hey man, I got $20 this week to spend on comics and it's all Bruce Wayne. So that's all I'm buying this week. And it makes you go like, oh, I can't pick up this one or that one. And I think that overall has hurt the industry.
I
Um,
think so too, because if you're on a $20 budget, that means you can pick up four comics, right? And you got four comics, and three of them are Batman. What's going to happen? You're going to buy the other one. You're going to buy, you're going to spend your money on another Batman, or maybe you could spend your money on a Flash, or maybe you decide there's a new Aquaman out. Well, if there's so many Batmans, then, if there's a bunch of Batmans, then, it just takes away from what the possibilities that could be.
Yeah. No, and I think the other part too is I do think newer readers might have a little trepidation of like, I want a Batman comic book, and they walk them over like, well, which one? This one, this one, this one, this one, this one, and it's like,
Yeah.
I don't know if I want to get into all that.
Yeah.
And I think there is something to having like a linear approach. I mean, one of the things I think comic books needs to maybe take a little bit of a look at is, as much as I don't understand the medium of it and don't really like most of the stories, manga is incredibly successful. And one of the things I've noticed with that is like my son always knows which one is next. He always knows the volume. Like there aren't 50,000 spin-offs of his favorite manga titles. There is that One Piece one that he reads, and I think it's a Kaiju number 8 or something like that's another one he reads. He picks it up and he knows exactly what it is. There's one volume of it. That's the one. That's one artist. It's one vision. It's one story, and it keeps him engaged. Whereas, like, if I tell him, like, "Hey, pick up Batman," well, what do you want? Detective Comics? Do you want Batman? Do you want Batman Off-World? Do you want Batman? It's like, yeah, I'm good. I'll just stick with this very easy linear story of picking things, and I think that works for people. And I think the other problem is I think they're always trying to do like a new number one Batman to get like speculators and oh, it's a new number one. And again, I just don't understand that. In that,
They are, I'm telling you, they're keeping the presses rolling, they're keeping the lights on.
yeah, and that's probably what it has to be. I
You
just
know,
One of the things I think that's weirdest about comic books right now is that tendency to just keep launching number ones. What's so weird is like we know in life that people are addicted to collecting things. I mean, whether it's that Pokemon Go thing that happened a couple years ago, we got people walking around with their little phones out and because they want to collect stuff, or when you launch a series of manga, people want to collect all the volumes. When they do a limited edition run of things, people will go buy all 6 or 10 or whatever. For some reason, comics have gotten out of their mind that like, oh, people don't want to track down the older ones. We need to make sure there's only a new number one for them. And it's like, I honestly think half of what made comics exciting when I was a kid was that thrill of like, okay, cool. This is like issue 75 of Green Lantern. Cool. There's 74 more for me to go hunt down. And I
that's
think
what got me
it
hooked.
kind of killed it. And that chase of that, and I think there's an addiction to it, that people have of wanting to collect things and go. And I think we've kind of, I mean, heck, video games show that. How many people play these games to like, I know my teenager's been playing that dang Spider-Man 2 game for like a month because he wants to find all the collectibles and get the 100% on it. And it's like, there is something that people like collecting things. And for some reason, modern comics have it in their mind of like, nope, after like 25 issues, that's it. We got to reset and go back to a number one.
It's because I
Doesn't make
think
sense.
that when you put number one, the sales go up slightly.
Hmm. Yeah.
And it's all about chasing those numbers because they've got a stable of artists and a lot of suits that make a lot of money. And New York City employees are not cheap.
Yeah.
Yeah, and so paper's not getting any cheaper. Keeping those presses rolling, keeping the lights on. Um,
And maybe that
it's
is all it boils down to is they just
it's a
need to take out
scramble.
the bottom line.
I think it's a money grab, and Batman sells a little bit better than everything else. Anything else is a risk, and they're close to the wire. Where if they don't sell X amount, they're going to have to scale down.
Yeah. No, but let us know what you guys think below. Do you think the over reliance on Batman is hurting the comic book industry, or do you think it's the only thing keeping the lights on? Do you think it would be better for DC to maybe take a gamble and put some of those creative teams on other books and try to establish some other heroes? Let
We
us
would
know what
love to
you guys
see
think.
it. That would be
No,
cool.
I mean, at the very least, I would think you could get Arthur Curry and Barry Allen an ongoing title. I will never understand. I know money's tight on things. I don't get how DC thinks they're better with those two not having a book. But again, let us know what you guys think. If you enjoyed the video, please make sure to like, subscribe, and we always enjoy reading comments. So if you have anything you disagree with or agree with us, please comment below. It's always one of the best parts of these is seeing any comments you guys have. Thank you for watching, and we'll see you in our next video.